Good morning, social media breakfast. Yes, let's have it. I'm so glad to see everyone here today and everyone online if you found us. I know we've been moving around online a little bit, so those of you who are coming in late or watching in replay, thank you. Um, we are going to be talking today about the customer journey. And honestly, I think it's an under talked about topic, I guess a hard way to say that. But I brought Sabrina in because I saw that Sabrina has an amazing background in corporate communications, and she's taken that and translated it into her that online experience so that even small businesses can do this. So we're going to talk today about that journey and where you meet people along the way. And I think, especially in any environment, especially the online environment these days, it's so chaotic, right? Yeah. So, I wanna just talk through the entire process, but also we'll leave a lot of room for questions at the end, if it's possible, but could you tell me, like, where you got into this, customer journey of, like, where did this become a thing for you?
Yeah, well, the customer journey map, first of all, just to kind of give a definition, it is the visualization of the process your customer goes through to ultimately make a purchasing decision. And when you work in marketing, especially for a larger organization, I come from a healthcare background. We have lots of services that are specific to different individuals. So
Mhm.
our patient in that instance will look very different across the board. So we would use customer journey maps, personas to kind of help us understand how do we meet that person where they are, kind of understand what are their pain points, what channels are they accessing, what touch points are most relevant to them, and what questions do they have at each step of the journey. So it's really helpful to visualize and then disseminate that across a larger organization or even a smaller business if you're wanting to kind of understand how is my entire customer journey. What is my customer experience when they're coming to me for a service or a product?
Oh, that's amazing. So those of you who are here in the audience, we did out these customer journey maps just for a visualization of the room. Those online, we do have this map. So if you want this map, just tell us in the comments, like, yes, please send me the map, and we will send you the map as soon as we can. So I'll let you know. And sorry, Tracy, I know you don't have this map, but we'll hopefully get it to you. Maybe Winter can send it to Tracy, Tori, if that's possible, because I sent it to him. All right. So, that being said, on this map, as I look at it, the first step is there's a bunch of on this map. So the first one I see is consider. So what is that? Is there a step before that, or is that the where you start with people?
So I think the traditional journey map has three phases. So awareness, consideration, and then the decision making process.
Mhm.
That's kind of like the standard. So it's three. But each business is different, so you can definitely customize. I think this example, this is someone who is looking to purchase a new car.
Right.
Um, so it's gonna
Change.
fluctuate and change based on your business, based on your product, but I think just a really great place to start is awareness, consideration, and then decision-making process, where awareness is they may not even know that they need this product or they need this service, so it's more so about you making the consumer aware of who you are and what you offer, whereas consideration is they're ready to make a purchasing decision, but they need that push. They need a differentiator as why I should go with your product or service
Something else.
over the next person. And then the decision making period is when they're actually ready to make, or conversion, some people use it as, is when they're
Mhm.
ready to make that decision. So looking at the three is kind of like the baseline.
That's great. And so that's that. And you were talking about, knowing who those customers are and making a persona for them. So what I've heard from small business owners, and I've talked to a lot of them, is they say, I can sell this to anybody. Like, I can sell it to, like, grandma, but also I can sell it to, like, a, young person because they need it for this and this and this. So, what we often tell them is, like, "Please, focus." But
Right.
what would you say about that? So kinda talk me through that whole persona process.
Yeah, well, a persona is basically a character and it's your customer, but you're creating a narrative about the customer. So what's their background, demographic details, maybe income level, what's their role, what's their job role. So you're really creating this character that you're putting through your journey map. And if you're a business that has the mindset of, well, this is applicable to everyone, the way that you would communicate with a 75-year-old woman in Idaho is going to be different than you would communicate with me, a 32-year-old, mom in Houston, Texas, right? So maybe you're marketing the same product, but the persona is going to be different to communicate to those different individuals. So I think that's how you should approach it if you're going to do cast a wide net.
Right. So you'll have to have multiple personas.
Correct.
So what's the pluses and minuses of multiple personas?
Well, I think there's a misconception that the exercise of developing a persona is going to take a long time, especially if you're a lean marketing team or you're a small business. I don't have the time to come up with all these characters and create these stories. The value in that is, one, you're able to, again, visualize, and you're able to think in that persona's mindset when you're doing your marketing and when you're doing your social media content. So the benefit of having multiple is that you can really begin to personalize your content because you're thinking of it from the perspective of persona A, which maybe is Susan, versus persona B, which is Jared. And I know at Social Media Breakfast, you guys have talked a lot about AI, and that, I mean, you know where I'm gonna go with this. AI is such a transformative tool to help you with your business. And it's a way that you can build out these personas and just give the different LLM, large language models, ChatGPTs, Claude, Geminis, just a bit of data about your customer and ask it to build out a narrative, a persona, a story based on the data that you give it. And you can really begin to generate 4, 5, 6 in a very efficient amount of time. So I think that that's an exciting part about being a marketer today is that you have all these tools and resources that are very accessible. You can use ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini for free, and you can really become more efficient with these exercises that maybe in the past would have taken a couple of hours that can now be done under an hour, maybe even 30 minutes if you have your data already ready to go.
So when you say data, can you explain what that is?
Yeah, so it's information, demographic information about your customer. You can pull it from first party, so your website. Social media is a really great place to pull demographic information. That way, when you're building out these personas, it's based in data and not like what you think your customer looks like. I think that's important when you're developing a personas. Maybe sometimes marketers or business owners they are married to what a certain customer should look like and who they are, but you should allow the data to tell that story. And we have so many tools where you can extract it pretty easily and you can be able to really create more strategic personas that make sense.
No, that totally makes sense. So one of the questions I would have to kind of push back on that or what I hear, I'm just going to be one of those customers. One of them say, well, Serena, I agree. That'd be great if I had data, but nobody really follows. I'm a startup. Nobody really follows me yet. I'm not really sure what is that. So what would you say then?
Well, I think that you should have basically a baseline of what your business looks like. So if you don't have data, then you have to go off of, your business model, and what you think it may be. But if you have 10 customers that have bought from you, you can send out a customer survey. There's things that you can do. 10 is not statistically significant, but it's a place to start. And again, from you're not building it from like what you think, you're building it from what you know and what is being given to you. So that's what I would say.
Right, and what about, like, I'm gonna kinda lead you down a path with it. What about categories? I mean, so if you're coming into a business and you are a startup or you're starting something new, there's usually a category for that, like some kind of category, like, education or, education for whatever. So there's, like, places online you can find this data, right?
Absolutely,
Can you give some
absolutely.
ideas around that?
Well, I'm gonna go back to the AI and asking for like using that as a tool for research. So if you know your business is in a certain category, you want some consumer data, that's a great place to start. Of course, doing your own research on the Googles. There's lots of data points that are available that you can kind of use as a business to give you a baseline.
Yeah, you can also, like, find places like Reddit, places like that where people are
Yeah,
talking about this and see what people are saying too,
right.
right?
One of the things I love to do whenever I'm Googling something, I'll put the phrase and then I'll put Reddit behind it because that's such a great
Switch.
resource. Yeah, it's such a great resource to find kind of not unknown information, but just like very grassroots.
Yeah, like, things people are talking about right now. I know a lot of people hate Reddit and they think, "Oh my gosh, what a terrible place," and it is kinda terrible because people complain a lot there, but actually complaints are great because complaints help you to create content around that question, right?
Right, right, and then that kinda goes back to the journey map, so a big part of it is hypothesizing questions that someone will have at each step of the journey.
Well, that's a perfect transition. Look at you transitioning. That's amazing.
Yeah,
So that is it. So once you have your personas uh, or personas, and by the way, if you're a small business, I'd suggest that you like focus on one at a time because for
right.
every single one you have to build out, what do you have to build out? Like so many things.
Well, yeah, you wanna create a narrative, understanding what demographics are important for your business. So, whether it's age, location, income range, you wanna kind of build out that character. And I agree that starting one at a time is a good starting point because you don't wanna get into a place where now you have 10 different personas because that's gonna be a little bit more challenging to translate that to content on social media or
Yeah,
messaging.
like is it like Monday is one persona, Tuesday's another
Right.
persona, Wednesday?
Yeah.
I mean, how does that work?
Yeah. I think if you're a small business, 1 or 2 is sufficient. If you're a much more robust, enterprise, like a healthcare system, obviously, you're gonna have dozens, but if you're a smaller business, 1 to 2 is a good starting point to really focus in on how you wanna communicate.
Yeah, and for a big corporate, usually they have landing pages for each persona, right? Is that how
Right.
that works?
Right. So when we're thinking about the touch points that you're accessing, there are different landing pages, there are different email journeys that they would put on based on maybe how they filled out a form from the website. So it begins to become omni-channel, and that is very effective, but that also requires um, a larger investment in the tools and technology to be able to implement that at scale. So again, speaking to smaller businesses, just being mindful of 1 or 2, it's definitely achievable to create 1 or 2 unique landing pages for your persona. Like, that's an attainable goal.
Yeah, and speaking of AI, because of the AI environment, it's true that people are going to want more personalization or they're gonna require personalization. They're gonna be like, "That's not me." I don't know how many of you have gotten, some kind of marketing thing, you're like, "They don't have any clue who I am whatsoever." How many raise your hand if that's ever happened to you. By the way, 100% of the room. So, AI, is going to make it possible to personalize, the it's when it's baked into the tools. So this is a really great system for you guys to start to learn this entire process because you'll be able to apply some AI to it over time. Right now, maybe not as clearly for a small business, but it's coming, right?
Right, and I was looking at, statistic last night when I was kind of preparing for this talk. I think it's something almost 70% of customers expect their data to be collected for personalization. So I talked to some business owners that have maybe a hesitation that I don't wanna freak people out or I don't want them to feel weird about me knowing this information about them, but that's just not the sentiment anymore. I think consumers are more sophisticated, they understand, they expect it, and as a business owner, you need to find a way to deliver that need to them.
I mean, if you're gonna take my data, you might as well, like, actually use it for, like, a way to make me happier, right?
Right, and make things ultimately, because personalization is about convenience. Personalization helps your experience just be more convenient. When I go on, the Sephora app, they know the product that I've bought recently. They even know, "Hey, it's been 3 months since you bought this product. Do you refill?" And it's very helpful, and it pushes me to buy. So I think just I don't look at it like, why do they know that I purchased that? That's so weird. I look like, thank you. This is a reminder that I need to make this purchase. So that's like in real time of how effective it can be.
That's really good. It reminds me of my kids because on Spotify, they're very concerned about their Spotify playlist and how many times it's been like what they're listening to. I've heard them say, I can't listen to that on Spotify, mom, because it'll mess up my like stats. And I'm like, what? That is
Yeah,
very sophisticated for
right.
very young people.
Yeah, like kind of gamify it. I mean, even not to go on too much of a tangent, but Apple Music at the end of the year, they will show you how many like your top musicians, your top artists,
In
and it's
Spotify, yeah.
yeah, and it's a big thing that people post on social media. But obviously, Spotify and Apple have identified like this is a really great way to promote our service at the end of the day, and it's kind of some user generated content that we can do with all the data that we have for folks. So it can work really across industry.
I mean, I'm getting those vibes of like mixtape, like when I was a kid, right? Tells you how old I am. We would make mixtapes, but now you can make like Spotify playlists.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, so let's talk about the journey. So we've talked about the people, we've talked about the data, we've talked about the AI. What's the first step?
So when you have your persona, you know who your player is, you've chosen your player. Now you need to kind of understand, well, what are their channels? So you're thinking of those channels in terms of those three phases that we talked about: uh, awareness, consideration, and conversion or decision making. So as you're going through the journey, you're trying to understand, well, if someone is to become aware of me, how would they become aware of me? Would they see me on a PPC ad? Would they see me on social media? Is it going to be on television, a podcast? So I think after you have your persona, you are then going to consider channels and what channels your customers are accessing you on.
All right. So then we're out there in the world and there's a lot of different channels these days. So how do you choose like which channels to pick? I mean, how do you do
Yeah.
that?
Well, I think it goes with just your own personal research, like putting yourself in the mind of your customer. If they're looking for your product, how would they access it? Is your product brick and mortar? Is it going to be more a product? Is it something where they would put it into Google? So I think you need to do a little bit of your own research, kind of role playing, if to say, to figure out, okay, what is the best touch point? Because there are so many, and you may have to weed it down and like kind of focus on ones that you think are going to be most valuable. But I would say a really good touch point, if you have just no idea, is to go through the process as if you're a new customer looking for the service.
Oh, interesting. So tell me more.
About going through the process. So let's say I'm come from healthcare, and a lot of our services they take a really long time to make a decision. It may take someone 6, 12, 18 months to ultimately get there. So, in building out our journey, the first step that we often realize is education, that someone is trying to understand, do I need to even see a position for this? What does this mean? Like, there's just a lot of confusion. So, in doing that, there was content created around education to, based on these different services on how to help the patients kind of understand where they are. Does it make sense for them to go into the healthcare system or just see a position for whatever this service is? It's kind of a starting point. And then from there, moving to, okay, they are looking at educating themselves around the service. I think my mic is going in and out. Right here?
Yeah.
Okay. Um, when you are providing that education, kind of the next step would be to bring them into the journey. So it could be gated content. It could be a point where you're trying to engage them maybe on your platform. So a website, sign up list, things like that. So now you know that this person has express an interest. And from there, you can put them into email journeys and really start nurturing them to ultimately make that purchasing decision.
Yeah, that's really great. So, if you make educational content and put it on your website, and then you atomize it is the best way I would call it, like and put it out in your social media, right? Since we're the social media breakfast, I want to get back to how you get that out. Then that would bring people to your website. That's the goal, right?
Right.
Is to bring them to your website.
Well, I think it varies on your business. I think most businesses, the website is the most valuable because that is where you have the ability to capture information from them and then continue to nurture them as a lead or a customer. But on social media, we see that a lot of people don't like to leave platform. They want to stay in platform. So even if you're just providing information that will one, they'll have like that frequency where they're seeing your your ad or your content continually and it'll resonate. I think the statistic is it takes like 7 touches for someone to really
I think
remember.
it's more than that now, actually, but yeah,
Yeah,
it's crazy.
right. So I think also having that in mind, like, yes, getting them to the website is really a great goal, but that doesn't always happen, especially on social media. So, being mindful of that and how you project your content out.
Yeah, and I think that's really important because I want you to say more about that because I feel like that's usually what, especially if you're working in a company, that's what the management wants, right? They want to see direct ROI from that particular social media platform. So how do you kind of work that in general as far as your thinking?
Yeah, I think you have to, one, think of what your key performance indicators are and make sure that you're aligned on that. And one of the
Tell them what that is.
things
Some people don't know. KPIs,
KPIs, key
right?
performance indicator, that is basically a goal, a statistic that you're looking at that is indicating that if something was successful or not. So some people may look at reach. I want to reach 50,000 people. And if you reach that goal, you've achieved your KPI goal. So one aligning, but one of the things that I love a lot of, on social media that I use often is CPM, which is cost per 1,000 impressions, and it's really a great indicator of how much did it cost for us to reach this amount of people. And social media CPMs are always significantly lower than traditional
You're
CPMs.
talking about advertising here though, right?
Right,
In this
where
case. Yeah, okay.
yeah,
But how would you I mean, a CPM is not gonna be something for organic.
right. Well, no, it won't be for organic, but I'm saying in the sense of being able to show that one, this is an efficient way to reach people. So even if you're looking at reach, for example, and saying, okay, we were able to reach 20,000, 30,000 people for free. We didn't have to,
Oh, yeah,
spend
so you
media
could say
dollars.
yeah, it's yes, I get it.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, when you talk about management and they're wanting a way to kind of quantify why is this successful, I think reach and looking at like those KPIs is important because it helps you quantify your social media
Yeah,
efforts.
I think it's a lot better than followers because followers don't necessarily translate to viewers, right?
Right. No, not all the time. And I think a lot of platforms now, a a follower is not gonna necessarily be the person always sees your content. You A lot more people can see your content that aren't even following you, so that's really kind of a mindset shift from maybe the last 5 or 6 years of social media. In the past, it was all about, "I wanna have a huge follower count," and now it's more about, "What is your reach?" Um, how like, are you gaming the algorithm well enough to where you're being put on different people's pages?
No, I mean, I think that's really important, and there's a lot of really cool tricks around that. One of the cool ones that not a lot of people think about is if you go out and interact with other pages and leave comments and stuff, people are gonna follow along to your profile. So one of the things I'm thinking about as maybe a new kind of KPI idea is views of your profile
Right.
views.
Yeah. Yeah, that could be a good way too to show interest because it takes a lot of effort for a social media user to click onto your page, so that it definitely shows intent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
some intent. Anyway, that being said, they're starting to get to know you because that awareness is being built because it really is social media is an awareness stage, would you say?
Yeah, I
And
mean,
maybe consideration too. I don't know.
yeah, I say it's social media can be a discovery tool for a lot of people, but it can also be consideration. So you do need to be mindful of that when you're building out your content mix and what organic content that you're putting out and just saying, is this content that someone would find useful if they're in the discovery phase or their awareness phase, or if they're in the consideration and how to work that in?
That's great. And so, for that mix of that content, like what is your first thought about social media to content? What should it be? Entertaining? Like what?
I think something that's always valuable. Like your content should be valuable to your audience. Um, yes, it's a business, you're trying to sell a product, And of course, the bottom line is important, but if you are constantly promoting, selling, that's not valuable. And social media users are sophisticated. They know when they're seeing an ad or when they're seeing an organic post that is trying to perform as an ad. And they just know to scroll past it. You're in a world where there's so much happening at any given time. So if you really focus on like how can I provide information that's valuable, your content will be so much stronger and more engaging.
I mean, it's interesting you say that. I was actually scrolling through as we do on Instagram the other day, and I was flipping through, and I came across an ad that was like a placement ad inside of a creator was being sponsored to do the ad, and people were putting in there, "This is the best ad." Like, I love this ad. Like, I know this is an ad, but this is a fun ad. So
Right.
interesting.
They say the best marketing doesn't feel like marketing. So
Anyway, but they knew it was an ad,
yeah,
obviously. But
yeah.
anyway, cool. All right. So that being said, what's the next step?
So we've done awareness, we've done consideration. So now that you know that the individual or the customer is considering your business, it's time to kind of close that loop and bring them in and convert them. Um, and there's different ways that you can do this across channel. I know this is social media breakfast and we're kind of talking about organic, but optimizing your content to where there's always a very clear call to action and making it very easy for your customer to ultimately make that decision. And if you're able to take it off social media by capturing emails, like I said, it's a great way to get them into that email nurture strategy, email journey, and to kind of automate that process and set it up to where certain messaging is being sent after 2 or 3 days, those sorts of things when you're trying to
A
kinda close that loop.
sequence.
Right, a sequence.
I mean, isn't that crazy that email is still what we want people to do?
Yeah, I mean, again, I know this is social media breakfast, but as marketers, you can't just isolate your channels. You have to consider all digital channels. And the great thing about email that I don't think it gets a lot of credit is that it's really low cost and it's very effective. So as a small business or a lean marketing team, it's a great tool to kind of capture those lower funnel, the people who are ready to make that purchasing decision and kind of push them to that
Right, and there's other
decision.
things that have come up too besides email, like, chat bots, mini chat, and things like that, where, you say this word in this Instagram account, and I'll send you this thing. That puts
Yeah,
you on a list, that's one thing. There was another one I got just recently where they want it's a new kind of a thing where it's on your, um i iPay app or your Google Wallet, your iWallet or your your Apple Wallet.
Apple Wallet.
Thank you. Apple Wallet or your Google Wallet, and you can actually people can sign up to get notifications from you. So I'm going to talk to that guy this week. I mean, I might do it for social media breakfast where you'd be notified about one of these coming up on your like right on your screen of your phone. So there's other stuff coming up too, right?
Yeah, and even on we talk about like a decision that maybe is not always a purchase. Maybe you want them to watch a webinar that you're putting on, or maybe you want them to sign up for an event. So when I say conversion, it doesn't always mean a purchasing decision. And to your point about reminders, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, they allow you as the creator to set up your post to remind someone about when you're going live or when a certain event is happening. So you can kind of use those tools in platform to get customers to confirm different events that you're having. And once they're in a webinar or watching a live, they have a very strong intent and they're very engaged with you as a business, which is very valuable.
Yeah, no, I love that. And so, does that mean that all these small businesses should be doing webinars?
I think if it makes sense, we're in an age now where people crave information, and you have the TikToks where you can learn anything about everything at any moment. And
And TikTok Shop and,
oh
you
man,
know
TikTok Shop is crazy.
yeah. My lipstick today is
TikTok
TikTok
Shop,
Shop. Yeah,
okay, yeah,
100%,
yeah.
100%.
But it again, I think what's great about it is that it's very accessible to businesses at all sizes. It's not you don't have to be this huge corporation to play in this space anymore, which is great.
And I know in Meta, like, you can have it's an ad, you have to run an ad, but where you can sign up for that list or that webinar, that whatever, just immediately, like instantaneously right there without leaving the platform. I think that's happening a lot too because they don't want you to leave the platform, right?
Right, right, and it's just really not ideal. If you I try when I think about marketing, I try to put it into my brain and how I do things is if I'm scrolling and I see something I don't necessarily want to click off to sign up or to learn
Good
more.
point.
Yeah, so if you are thinking about that, how you're optimizing your content is just keeping it in platform is pretty much always ideal.
Yeah. So, how do we do that? That's why you're
Um,
here. Tell us.
well, there are like best practices, right? That you provide all the information very clearly in your content. If you have video, always using captions, because sometimes people are watching videos without sound, and if you don't have captions, they won't know what the video is about. And then, you can put links and, people use the Instagram bio a lot to use the link tree or those different sites that'll kind of put all your different business links in one centralized place. So that's a good opportunity just to make sure you have some sort of CTA for your business.
Yeah, I have a flow code. Ooh.
Flow code,
Yeah,
yeah,
those are
yeah.
cool too. That one is cool because you can put your ID for your Facebook in there, so you can actually gather data from that. So when people land on that, I'm gathering data a little bit different than Linktree. So
Yeah, and that's important too because whenever you can gather data,
yeah.
it goes
So cool,
back
cool, cool.
to
So let me see. I want to make sure we don't miss any of these spots. And also time. Let me see. Um, yeah. So you've got here. Consider, explore, compare, test, and negotiate. That's interesting.
Yeah,
So there's a lot of different places here, talking about reading a consumer report. So there's some PR stuff in here too.
yeah, yeah.
Um, there's so many channels. So how do we take those and decide what is most important? How do we take them and sort all this out?
Well, I think as a business, you have to determine where do I want to focus, where do I think there's the most opportunity. And a lot of the times data can tell you that, but if you're a small business and you don't know, I think a great place to start, social media, your website, and then maybe some paid advertising PPC, which is people typing into the keywords to find whatever your business or
Well,
service
and right
is.
now it seems like Google search is only PPC anyway.
Right, right, yeah. So I that's just my, personal opinion of a place to start if you really don't know where to start because there are so many different channels. Definitely social though is you gotta be on social and be strong there.
Yeah, and so when somebody comes to your social media page, like what would you want people to see? Like what is it that you're trying to do when people check you out there?
Kind of when I'm looking at a business's social media pages, just an audit for a client, you're wanting to understand when I'm looking at this page, what do you want your customer to walk away thinking you represent? And if your page has a lot of different content that is not very streamlined, doesn't really follow a theme. Maybe it's hard to understand like what you even sell or your service. That's a good indicator that there needs to be like a reworking. So it should be very clear if you sell an eyebrow pencil and
Mhm.
I go on your page, it should be very clear to me as a social media user that that's what you do, and I'm going to get the best information from that page for that service or product.
Right, no, that's great. I'm gonna open this up to questions because we're kinda getting on the end of this. So is there, some questions in the audience today? Okay, I'm gonna give out.
Thank you. Great information. So I do a little bit of gardening and I heard the word organic, but I'm not sure that you define it the same way I do when I'm thinking about gardening. Would you talk a little bit about what you mean by organic?
No, it is not the same thing. It's organic is just free. You're putting it out on social media. You're not putting ad dollars behind it. That's what organic means.
And I also
Community
wanted to,
building, yeah.
yeah, I also wanted to share. I listened to a conversation with Seth Godin yesterday, and one of the things he said is when you choose your customer, you choose your future. So, do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Um, the future, your customer, if you choose them, you're basically cementing like this is the path I want to go, and you can take that either way. That could be positive or it could be negative. I think again, which is why I always try to go back to data and not just solely relying on my mind. Like we're all smart, we all know our businesses to the best of our capabilities, but sometimes we're wrong, and we have tools and technologies to kind of help us navigate that.
Yes, you say social media, and to me, that's a really broad group of platforms. So, can you narrow that down? I mean, I know I use email, I use YouTube, but I'm not very visible on all the others because it's just too much to manage for me. So, can you kind of redefine social media for people that do like all of them?
Well, I think that's a really great reason to have a persona because when you have that persona, you can identify, well, what channels do they prefer? And there's a lot of data out there for age groups or demographics that prefer one channel, yeah, or interests that prefer one channel over the other. So I think if you're building that persona, that's a way for you to kind of weed out what makes the most sense as far as what channel I should be active on.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for your time and this information is very, very important. Well, can I ask you a question? What do you think is next as far as marketing and AI? What is next as far as the future goes?
Well, I see that influencer marketing is really just skyrocketing, and, even, like, when I'm watching traditional TV, the format of ads is kind of like an influencer talking to me on YouTube, and what I say that to say I think people just want a more personal experience. They don't want something extremely polished or commercialized. They wanna feel like what they're getting is real. Consumers are very sophisticated. They research a lot. So I think we're getting to a point where we're just having to be maybe a little, less polished as marketers, and not to say that in a negative way, but just being a little bit more authentic.
I didn't steal your mic. So I did wanna talk a little bit about this sale. So, like, once we get this all in, I mean, there's this whole feeling that, how do we put our marketing in contact with sales? I mean, some of us don't feel like we're salespeople at all. Like, some of us are a one-person shop. Some people have to hand it off to the sales team. Like, could you just talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, I think the one of the things that we talked about when we had the conversation is the journey map and how it can translate to the sales team and make sure that there's alignment, just so everyone in the organization is on the same page about what that customer looks like, what they're doing to ultimately make that decision. So I when it comes to sales, it's kind of working in tandem with them, having like a tangible document is very valuable and important. And that way you can like disseminate that across different individuals of your business.
Hello. One of the big things I wanted to ask was that our organization focuses on followers as a KPI, but touching back to what you said, it's better to track the page and profile views. So I know we do that for our main website through Google Analytics, but as far as social, would you say the profile and page are more valuable? I just wanted to.
I think it just creates a more clear picture because followers can ebb and flow. People can follow, unfollow. Like it's really hard to track that consistently because it can change day to day. But I think page views is really an indicator that people have a strong intent and they're engaged with your business. So it's a great way to tell the whole story.
Just as a point, there's some research out there that shows, at least on LinkedIn, that I know for sure because it's solid research, that it only shows it to about 5% of your following anytime you post. So, that's the problem with followers in general. I mean, it's nice to have, but it doesn't mean they're gonna see it.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm interested when you said that sales should be aligned with what you're doing beforehand and if you have a separate team. So what if you're really small and you focus on all the social media and getting people in? How do you keep that going once you get into a sales conversation or once you have a customer and you want them to be a repeat customer? That that would also be part of this journey, right?
Yeah, there are some journey maps that actually include a separate phase of like post purchase, and that's more about like retention and okay, well, what do I need to do to continually serve this customer? So I think that's something that you could add into it as well, thinking about well, once they've made the purchasing decision or once they have booked the service, how can I continue to engage them post purchase? Yeah, and nurture them post purchase.
Well, I do have another question. So, what are some additional resources, like books, podcasts, anything that we can utilize?
To listen. So I subscribe to quite a few different um, email newsletters, and like of course I'm creating all of them now that I'm up here on the stage. But if you talk to me after, I can show you the ones that I'm following that I'm interested in. Podcasts. Let me think. You know, I'm ashamed to say the podcasts I listen to are all about pop culture.
Wow,
But,
authenticity.
I will say HubSpot, they have, quite a few different newsletters, and they sponsor a couple of newsletters. The big one they have, I'm missing the name, but it's again, we'll connect after. But if you're online, if you go to the HubSpot website, they have, all their newsletters that you can subscribe to.
Thank you.
A couple, Social Media Marketing World has a bunch of different ones. Social Media Marketing World. Also, you can, Mark Schaefer is really good too. He talks about more like future kind of looking how this is gonna work, AI. I'm a part of his group too, so there's that. I've been doing a monthly newsletter on AI if you, for, and marketing for PR and marketing people, so you can follow me there on LinkedIn. That'd be where you follow me there for that. So there's just a few like that, and there's more, but those are the couple that I can think of off the top of my head. Oh, good. We got a mic back. Fantastic. So that being said, one thing you said about sales that I think is really interesting is if you do have a separate sales team, you can ask sales about who your best customers are. Also, if you don't have a sales team, Ms. Giga, to your question, you can think about who have been your favorite customers, and then you can build your entire persona around who was your favorite customer, like one, and then attract more of those. So I think bringing it back to simplicity is really important.
Yeah, I agree. Don't overthink it. Um And again, if you have the data, look at the data. But I think that's a great suggestion, your favorite customer, if you don't have this super robust sales team to tell you that.
Yeah. And I think another thing I wanted to ask you because it makes sense to me that every time grow your business, there's going to be a whole set of like s- sales sequences, follow ups. I mean, there's just a lot of complexity that goes behind each choice that you make. So if you're like following three different personas, you're going to have three different entire systems for those personas, right?
Mhm. Yeah, ideally, that's what you would wanna do. You'd wanna it goes back to personalization, which is why I think it's important to think about what is scalable. You asked me earlier, how many personas should you have as a business, which is if you're a smaller business, so I said 1 or 2 because you'll likely be able to support building the sequence between those 2 different personas versus if you went out and, say, did 12. It's not gonna be as effective because you're not gonna be able to build sequences that are ideal for those 12 individuals.
I've also found that by focusing on 1 or 2, I often attract adjacent personas to that 1 or 2 just by, like, really focusing because it's such a good message that other people are like, "Oh, yeah, that's interesting," they lean in, right? I'm
Yeah.
sure you've known, I mean, you've seen they're talking to men or women or this or that, and you've heard something that wasn't directly to you, but you thought, "Oh, that's interesting." Even so, I know I do. I do it all the time. I listen to stuff that, was there. So,
Not
anyway,
intended for you, but relevant to you.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I know this is complicated. It's a lot. There's a lot of tools out there. They're getting better. I use ConvertKit, which is my email tool. There's some other tool, like there's one called Brevo that seems really cool to me that I'm even thinking about changing to. That sounds really interesting because they help you a little bit more with personalization for the small business. So you may want to check that one out. Why I like ConvertKit is because I can put links in it, and if you click on them, then it automatically adds you to another tag. So I know, like, oh, you had an interest in AI because you clicked on that thing. You know what I'm saying? So it helped me to segment audiences. So anything that helps you segment an audience right now is really important. And I think with AI coming into the picture, these tools will get even better at this over time because I've been seeing things that are out there. I don't know if you've seen this. What about you? What tools do you like right now?
Well, I'm really into AI, so I'm using like ChatGPT, Claude Gemini for not even just business things, but just like my whole life. It,
Yeah, good.
there is it's like my virtual assistant, and I'm exploring other AI tools. Um, there was one I was working with the other day on. I don't know why I'm not remembering things, but it is where you can take, like, if you have a podcast and it can visualize the podcast.
Oh yeah.
That one is very interesting to me. If you're a business or
Well, and then there's Notebook LM. Have you played around with Notebook
I
LM?
haven't, but I've heard about it.
So
I've
you can
heard
take
about it.
Notebook LM, which is it's using Gemini, which is Google Notebook LM, and you will open it up. Once you open it up, it's free. And if you have a Gmail or G something, and you're logged in, and you can put in documents into that one notebook, and then ask a bunch of questions about the documents. So it's training on your own data. Also, it does this really cool thing where it makes this cool little chatty podcast between, like a little millennial podcast between.
I think I saw that on
Yeah,
TikTok.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's cute.
yeah.
Unfortunately, those are the voices you're stuck with because they only have these 2 voices, but, so right now it's really cool, but I'm sure in, like, months, people will be like, "Those people again? They're doing all the podcasts." But it's really cool because you can upload it and it'll have a talk about your data in a way that's kind of enlightening.
Right, it made more interesting to listen to.
Interesting to listen to, and
Mhm.
sometimes they pull out things you're like, "Oh, yeah, I didn't think of it that way either."
Yeah,
So, it's a cool little tool, but what I like about Notebook LM is you can train it on your own data, and it's not the sending it out into the internet because people are worried about privacy and all that kind of stuff. So, it's contained inside of that one notebook, and it's not using your data into the Gemini training.
yeah,
So, it's cool.
very cool. Lots of opportunity out there. It's
So
just
what if you had
growing.
one notebook for each persona, and then you just had conversations with that persona in that notebook?
Wow, yeah. That's really using the tools to the best of their ability.
So anyway, a couple of ideas.
Very good.
I'm big into AI too. You and I need to spend some time together.
Yeah, we do. Swap some ideas.
All right. Any other questions online out in the audience? Anybody else? Okay, great. We are at the good. Next month is Gift of Guidance. We are going to be sending out more information about that. Make sure you sign up to hear more about it. We are looking for volunteers to be table leaders and scribes for that. We help 10 nonprofits in the Houston area. You do have to attend live because we're going to be with the nonprofits around a table. And we'd love to have any of you as a table leader or a scribe for that. And also, all of you will be invited just to come and sit around a table and just have a conversation with a nonprofit and help them in their thinking. So I hope you decide to come. It's the second Tuesday of December at our normal time, 8:30 a.m. And we will talk about, oh no, Friday. Sorry, I don't know what I'm thinking. I'm in the wrong life. Second Friday, I don't know. Tuesdays are another thing. Anyway, so second Friday of the month. Thank you. And we will be there. And so sign up for that and we will let you know about it. If you're not on our email list, you can go to smbhou.com and get on our email list so we can tell you what's going on from somebody who knows what they're talking about besides me. Anyway, awesome. That is all. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina.